Captain Mara Dalton had never wanted attention. Once, long ago, she had thrived on precision, on the thrill of command in skies where every second decided life or death. But now she wanted only silence and anonymity, and the comfort of blending into the background. She chose the transatlantic flight for that reason, a Lunyon Ocean between New York and London, where she could vanish into the hum of engines and the shuffle of strangers. Her seat was tucked by the window. She pulled her sweater close, a sweater that still carried faint traces of home, of laundry detergent and memories she didn't want to confront. She closed her eyes, listening not to her own restless thoughts, but to the small sounds of others. The steady typing of a man immersed in spreadsheets, the low murmur of businessmen swapping rehearsed pitches, the faint, uneven cries of a baby 2 rows behind. It was ordinary, and for the first time in months, Mara wasn't expected to lead, decide or save. But destiny rarely respects such wishes. The intercom hissed to life, followed by a voice that carried more tension than calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We are experiencing a situation that requires immediate assistance. If there is any combat pilot on board, please make yourself known." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Passengers exchanged puzzled glances. Some chuckled nervously, others stiffened. A request like that didn't belong on a civilian flight. It was the stuff of movies, not reality. Yet Mara knew instantly from the captain's voice, tight, strained, and stripped of comfort, that this was no joke. Then the flight attendant appeared. Tall, composed, her hair tied in a flawless knot, but her eyes betrayed urgency. She moved quickly down the aisle, searching faces, until she stopped at A. Her hand pressed lightly on Mara's shoulder, and her whisper trembled. "Ma'am, the captain is asking if there is a combat pilot on board. Do you know anyone?" Mara blinked awake, the fog of near sleep clinging to her. Instinct urged her to dismiss the question, to let the world believe she was just another passenger. She had buried that part of herself. The woman who once commanded fighter jets, who once carved paths through hostile skies with missiles locked on her tail, wasn't supposed to exist anymore. But the faces around her fear carved into them. Knuckles white against armrests, lips moving in silent prayer, spoke something deep inside her awake. She inhaled. Exhaled. Then steady as stone she said, "And a pilot. A combat pilot." The cabin stirred. Heads turned. Ask slipped from lips. The businessman across from her gaped, while a teenage girl leaned forward, eyes wide as if she'd glimpsed a living legend. Relief flickered across the flight attendant's face. She nodded once and whispered, "Please follow me." Mara stood, her sweater suddenly heavy, like a uniform she had worn in years. Every eye burned into her back as she walked the narrow aisle toward the cockpit. Each step drew her further from anonymity and deeper into the role she had abandoned. When the rainforest door clicked open, reality struck hard. Inside, red warning lights pulsed like heartbeats, alarms screeched in clipped bursts, and the captain and first officer wrestled with controls. Sweat gleamed on their pale faces. The first officer slumped, semi-conscious, oxygen mask loose at his side. On the central display, 2 words blinked relentlessly: autopilot failure. Proximity alert. And on the radar, Mara saw it, a blip closing in too fast. Too deliberate. The captain looked at her with desperate relief. "Thank God. We've lost partial control, and there's an unidentified aircraft shadowing us. Possibly hostile." Her pulse quickened. Old instincts, dulled by years of quiet, sharpened instantly. She slid into the co-pilot's seat, her hands finding the controls like they belonged there. "Do you still have manual override?" she asked. A grim nod. Together, they forced the jet into full manual. A machine responded sluggishly, but enough to remind her of rhythms her body had never forgotten. She whispered under her breath, a prayer, a command. "All right, girl. Let's see what you can still do." Through the cockpit windows, the Atlantic stretched like an endless abyss. The hostile aircraft cut across their path, its lights flickering irregularly. It was the commercial jet. It wasn't standard military either. Modified. Predatory. Designed to intimidate. And it was closing in. The radio crackled, the voice distorted, metallic. "Flight! You are off course, prepare to complete." Mara's jaw tightened. She leaned toward the mic. "This is a civilian aircraft en route to London. Identify yourself." The response was the same, colder. "Prepare to complete." On the display, new coordinates appeared hacked into their system, redirecting them off their transatlantic route. Whoever was behind this had more than planes. They had reached technology and purpose. Then the intercom erupted, the purser's voice panicked. "Top it, 2 passengers are trying to breach the service compartment. They're armed." The air froze. Outside threats were one thing. Inside, armed operatives. That meant coordination. This was no harassment. It was an operation. Mira's blood chilled. She slammed the comm switch. Secure the cabin. Hold them back at any cost. Then she saw it etched faintly on the hostile plane's fuselage. A mark almost hidden by the dark, a black insignia. Erstometrop. She knew it. Black Vulture. The rogue paramilitary group whispered about in classified briefings, blamed for illegal strikes and war zones before vanishing into the shadows. Mira's last mission had ended with her shooting one of them down. Civilians had died in the crossfire. The guilt had driven her out of service. She had buried that mission. Buried herself. And now that feat, Black Vulture had come for her. Not for the plane. For her. The aircraft shook violently as the enemy jet skimmed dangerously close, rattling trays in the cabin, sending passengers into terrified screams. Mira gripped the yoke tight, her voice sharp with authority. "Lock out their coordinates. Full manual now." The captain obeyed without hesitation. Together they stripped the system of the intrusion. Behind them, passengers fought back, overpowering the infiltrators in the cabin, courage born from desperation. Mira seized the moment. With precision only years of combat flying could teach, she dove hard so close to the ocean that black waves skimmed beneath their belly then pulled sharply upward. The sudden maneuver threw the hostile craft off balance. She cut across its flank, breaking its line of dominance. In a blink, the predator vanished into the night. Silence fell. The captain's breath came red. He turned to her, awe etched across his face. "You saved us." Mira didn't answer right away. Her eyes stayed on the horizon, where the faint glow of dawn brushed the curve of the earth. London appeared on the radar, distant but steady. Only then did she allow herself a long exhale. "Now today," she whispered. She handed the controls back, stood, and returned to the cabin. Passengers stared at her as if she were something more than human, their eyes filled with gratitude and disbelief. But Mira only wanted her seat again. Sit down. Anonymity. Hit. As she sank back down, sweater pulled tight once more, she closed her eyes. The others believed the danger had passed, that the story had ended in survival. But Mira knew the truth. The war she had tried to bury had ended. It had simply found her again, this time in the skies. And somewhere out there, Black Vulture was waiting for its next move. She whispered to herself, almost like a vow. "If it's me you want, you should have never come this far."